A westbound freight from Cumberland passes the water tank at Poland near McCool, Maryland. Here's a 4-engine freight near the top of Black Fork Grade. The summit is 3,057 feet. By contrast, Cumberland is 619 feet and Elkins is 1,926 feet above sea level. Black Fork Grade features 10 miles of 3.05% grade through Blackwater Canyon. Those Western Maryland consolidations were big, but they were still limited to 10 loads of coal per engine on this grade. The train is nearing Thomas, where the helpers will uncouple. One engine will give the eastbound train a start out of the yard. Then the helpers will return to Elkins for another job. A westbound 800 with a string of empties approaches Thomas on the Elkins subdivision. An eastbound climbs Black Fork Grade in wild and beautiful Blackwater Canyon. Diesels were now beginning to make an appearance as helpers. Alco RS road switchers lead this eastbound through Blackwater Canyon. With two consolidations in the lead, an eastbound coal train is climbing out of the northern end of Blackwater Canyon. They pass by the Thomas station, where a westbound diesel freight is waiting to go down the single-track main line. 3 diesels are in the middle of the train in one of the most gorgeous railroad settings in the East. This train is leaving Thomas eastbound with steam in the lead and 5 Alcos giving it a push over the hill. It's interesting to note that the 5 diesels would have only 1 crew. At this time, dieselization was taking place quickly and steam was fast being replaced by the diesel locomotive. A freight train, then passenger train number 9 at Henry completes this look at Western Maryland's spectacular Elkins subdivision. On the Western Maryland Connellsville main line, the local freight to Connellsville passes Frostburg on a typical snowy winter day in the Alleghenies. One of the older 280s, the 751, is pulling the train. An eastbound Alco FA freight is approaching the west end of Deal, Pennsylvania. 303 is leading. In this wintry scene, two F7s are on a westbound freight near Helmstedter's Curve. .484, number 1411 is the helper. As can be seen, diesels were moving in fast to replace steam in these 1953 scenes. A 210 decapod shoves this freight up the grade to Frostburg. Train number 10 from Elkins is led by a K2 Pacific through the yards past the engine terminal at Maryland Junction. It will shortly arrive at the Cumberland station. By this time, the Hagerstown to Cumberland segment had been discontinued. Number 10 left Elkins early in the morning, arriving in Cumberland around noon. It would depart at 2:45 and arrive back in Elkins about 6:30 in the evening. Train number 9 to Elkins is powered by an Alco RS road switcher. Two Western Maryland business cars, the 204 and the 203, give the usual mundane local a touch of class. A few days later, the business cars are again on this westbound to Connellsville. The diesel furnishes steam to heat the cars. Business car 203 is now in a museum at Strasburg, Pennsylvania, while 204 is being used as a cottage on Deep Creek Lake. It's owned by a Cumberland contractor. The train is now at the east end of Deal. A Potomac 484 pulls this freight by Maryland Junction toward Knobley Tunnel on its way to Hagerstown. Number 10 from Elkins passes through the engine terminal at Maryland Junction. Consolidation number 756 has just passed Lapp Water Stop with the Cumberland and Pennsylvania turn bound for Frostburg. This train will use the main line to a point just east of Frostburg, where it'll switch over to the old C&P track. The local is now arriving at Frostburg on the old C&P main line. The rail on this line was rolled in 1888. The operator at Frostburg gives orders to the crew of this set of FA units after helping a westbound up the mountain. Gotcha. The tri-weekly Connellsville local with 280 number 813 passes Frostburg. the operator hands up orders or a message to the crew on the caboose. The magnificent Salisbury Viaduct is the setting for the eastbound local with number 816. The two cars are ahead of the engine, so they can be easily set off at Meyersdale. After getting rid of the two cars, the local is now between Meyersdale and Keystone. Now a couple more cars have been switched ahead of the engine to be set off at Frostburg. At Frostburg, this westbound is running on the eastbound main line because of work on the westbound main. Also at Frostburg, the 816 is again on the Connellsville local. Near Deal, a westbound is on the Cumberland to Connellsville main line. It's pulled by 210-1129 and has a mid-train helper. The mid-train helper remains in the train over Salisbury Viaduct, even though the train is now downgrade. The helper will go all the way to Connellsville, as it's needed to help an eastbound. That helper is now on this diesel freight eastbound at Deal. In these scenes taken in the spring of '54, steam operations on the Western Maryland were almost at an end. Scenes such as Decapod 1114 leading a westbound freight around Helmstedter's Curve would soon be but a pleasant memory. This would be one of the very last steam operations on the Western Maryland. Just before Helper 1112 and the caboose arrives, another freight slams by going in the opposite direction, dusting those new Jeeps with a bit of bituminous residue. The train is now west of Frostburg. The crossover switch is being changed in preparation for taking up one track from here to Colmeyer. The water tank used to stand to the left where you can see the foundation. Today, the Western Maryland is gone, absorbed by the Chessie system. Helmstedter's Curve has but one track, and much of the Connellsville line is a public hiking trail. Blackwater Canyon is silent, its traffic diverted to the B&O. In the mind's eye, however, the Western Maryland still lives, with its long freights and diminutive passenger trains steadily climbing to the top of the grade over Allegheny rails. And now here's